Jim. So Jim asked me to just tell you a little bit about myself. I have actually been working at the UUA for 24 years. I've had several different jobs and titles, though it's always been in the social justice, multiracial, anti-racism field. And before that, I was a community organizer for about a decade, and I was a community organizer in search of a faith. You know, I was doing a lot of stuff on the left, and I think there's a reason sometimes it gets called the hard left, and I just felt like I needed to be with people that wanted to make change with with an approach of love and with an approach of caring for each other. And so I really found a home in Unitarian Universalism, and I am still hanging out. So I came in when President John Burns launched the Anti-Racism Initiative, and learned a lot about our history, you know, the abolitionist history, the civil rights history, and also some of the failures when we split apart over race in the 60s. And so I've seen both that proud and tragic tradition that we hold, where we've been both like really fighters and courageous, and also, you know, part of the system, part of the status quo, and part of being complicit. But what I've seen, you know, since we launched the Anti-Racism Initiative was then we moved into advocacy and witness. Our first black president, William Sinkford, was like, I'm really glad people are learning about white privilege and power, but now we've got to get out and start dismantling it institutionally. And I feel like he's the one who really shifted us into, I mean, you know, he named a new department called Advocacy and Witness. And then at the end of his administration, as you know, we elected our first Latino president, who helped launch the Standing on the Side of Love campaign. And it was like, you know, it's great that we've learned how to do advocacy and witness, and we now know that you can do a lot of nonpartisan issue advocacy, and we've been down there in Washington, but we've got to start building some partnerships right on the ground in our communities that can build some power and make change in that way. And I hope you've all, you know, I think this church has been pretty connected with the Standing on the Side of Love campaign, but that's really been the approach. And to find ways that we can be in deep partnerships locally, work on the state level, and then come together for those big, rare opportunities when we can actually make a difference nationally. So that's a lot of what my work is about. Since then, you know, we had a Justice General Assembly in Phoenix in 2012, and one of the headliner keynote speakers we had there was Michelle Alexander, author of The New Jim Crow, and that was the common read among UUs. And so we've been on a trajectory, right, that brought us to the moment we're in now. I do want to mention, because I think so much of change is about relationships, we had Opal Tometi at the Justice GA in Phoenix, and Opal is the executive director of the Black Alliance for Justice for Immigrants. And Opal is one of the co-founders of the Black Lives Matter movement. There are 3 black women who put together that frame. And that came about after Trayvon was murdered. And UUs in Florida were right out there in the lunch shirts going out and witnessing after that happened. So then, you know, you get to the place where I think everybody was surprised when the Ferguson Uprising happened. And that's what really put the legs on the Black Lives Matter slogan. You know, I mean, we've been out there for about a year and a half, but that's when people really started, I think, waking up. One of those aha, wake up moments. So, and we were a little slow at first to respond. But our executive VP, Teresa Cooley, did go to St. Louis. Our St. Louis ministers called for the UUA to come. Folks were connecting with the movement out on the streets, but at the same time, the whole debate, you know, right, started raging. All lives matter, Black lives matter. All lives matter, Black lives matter. And so one of the things we did was, we actually did do some surveying of UUs. There was a major survey of just people randomly, where most people were saying they supported the movement and wanted to get involved. And I also did a very particular justice survey with clergy and social justice chairs, and got responses from 300 from over 40 states saying that they supported the movement and wanted to connect with the movement and just needed help in moving the discussion forward, and even more than the discussion, you know, getting there on the ground and being part of it. So, and part of, I think, what moved it too is last year, this just past year, was the 50th anniversary of Selma, which so many Unitarian Universalists, you know, can connect to. And while it was a lot of the veterans who showed up in Selma, there was also a whole bunch of young adults who were connecting with the movement who came to Selma. And so we looked at the past, and we honored those veterans, and we honored the family of James Reed, and we honored the family of Viola Liozzo, and they were there, and they came. And then the next day we said, now it's time to look forward. And Reverend William Barber from the NAACP North Carolina, the Moral Monday Forward Together movement came, and he threw down a challenge to us to really connect and for the faith community to step out and provide a container for this movement that is going, you know, often toe-to-toe with the state, and to bring a moral lens to that, and to call for a moral investment in communities that have been left out, that have been criminalized, that have been disenfranchised, and that have been disinvested. And so we're actually working on a national level now with Reverend Barber to build that multi-faith coalition, and do so in connection with advocacy and community organizing groups, the Movement for Black Lives organizations, the Black-led organizations, NAACP. Beacon Press, our press, just released Reverend Barber's new book on January 12th. And Reverend Barber is going to be speaking at GA this year. He will be keynoting a racial justice track that's going to be going on in Columbus. And Reverend Peter Morales is also bringing other national faith leaders from UCC, from the Union for Reform Judaism, Muslim leaders. That one's a little tricky because our GA is during Ramadan this year. But the idea is to really we will be having a public witness on the steps of the state capitol in Ohio, demanding justice and showing that we are united together. So all that's in the mix, and some of what's given us the grounding is that last year's GA, there was an action of immediate witness passed in support of Black Lives Matter. It was brought by the Youth Caucus. Were any people there? I'd just like to see, you know, hands. Okay. So, you know, there was a lot of debate, and a lot of it came down around, you know, prison abolition, and can you say that? And, you know, I was sitting there going, you know, we actually have a 2005 statement of conscience on reform, criminal justice, and prison reform that pretty much calls for abolition of prison. I mean, the whole point of it is for restorative justice to replace the punishment system. So, you know, I think we're really getting there. At this point, because I know you guys are going to be doing a vote on the banner, you know, you're in the cutting edge group, because so far there's 60 UU congregations that I know of that have put up banners. And you've probably heard that, you know, probably about a third of those have been vandalized or stolen. And people have done really powerful rededication ceremonies and invited the community and like just really recommitted in the face of that. And you can find stuff on my website on Standing Outside of Love for what to do if the banner's vandalized. It's just kind of good to be prepared. Either that or have it really high up. But, and I just want to make sure I get everything in here for you. Just that we're, in those surveys I talked about, we also started tracking like where our congregations are doing multi-faith organizing on racial justice and in support of the movement, and also connecting with their chapters. So like my church, Cambridge, will have a Black Lives Matter Cambridge speaker, and we have a group that's also called the White Accomplices. So those two organizers are going to be speaking at our church next week. So I have tons of resources for you, and the only other thing I want to tell you is we just hired a brand new Standing on the Side of Love campaign director. Her name is Caitlin Breedlove. I don't know, I just think spirit's moving. And she was the executive director of SON, Southerners on New Ground. She identifies as white, queer. She's at the top edge of the millennials. And the majority membership of SON is black, queer. And they very consciously, in the South, decided that that membership could drive some wedges in the coalitions that are keeping change from happening. So you have their members showing up in support of strikes by white workers, or at immigrant rallies. So she has a really interesting intersectional approach. And she wants to take the campaign, she wants to kind of reinvigorate it, take it to the next level. We've been known as the show-up people, the people in the love shirts. But now we're going to get into how do we really show up and do it deeply? Do it in a deeper way and really figure out strategically how we can make a difference. Because while there's so much to be excited about in terms of movement right now, I think we're also starting to see we're seeing just the tip, I think, of a backlash. And so we've got to get out ahead of that. So stay tuned, and if I'm here, I can talk to you after the program too. My train doesn't come for a while, so really great to be here. Thank you.